Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
If you love the Selling from the Heart podcast, then you know how much we value authentic leadership and building relationships with heart. But here's the thing, great leadership doesn't stop with sales. It starts at the top with CEOs who inspire trust, create meaningful cultures, and lead with purpose.
That's why we're excited to invite you to get involved with the Culture from the Heart podcast. On Culture from the Heart, we celebrate CEOs who are transforming their companies by putting people first. And we're asking you to help us find them.
Do you work for an incredible leader? Know a CEO who builds culture from the heart? Nominate them to be interviewed on the show. Together, let's spotlight the leaders who make businesses thrive by leading authentically.
So head over to cultureFromTheHeart.com to submit your nomination today. Because when leadership starts with the heart, culture and success follow. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Oh, it's another great day here in the Selling from the Heart podcast studio. We're in for a treat, Daryl. I'm just excited for our guest to come on.
We are going to connect, trust, and grow with our friend, Jennifer Langton. It's going to be a great conversation today. Hey, thank you for joining us. If you're new to Selling from the Heart, you joined a growing community of sales professionals that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust, all of the things that go into what we call selling from the heart. And this is an amazing group of sales professionals all over the world. And we're so glad you're with us.
You know, absolutely. Actually, I'm going to give a shout out to an executive who I personally know wears their heart on their sleeve. I just want to give a big, huge shout out and a hug to my friend, Bill Stafford. He's one great guy, a phenomenal, heartfelt leader. I appreciate you. Thanks for being in this community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hats off to you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're in for a treat today. Today's guest is a powerful example of what's possible when bold innovation is grounded in heart and purpose. Jennifer Langton is a transformational leader who's operated at the highest levels of performance, where results matter and people matter just as much. As the former senior vice president of player health and innovation at the NFL, Jennifer led the league's first injury reduction strategy, driving a groundbreaking 25% reduction in concussions through initiatives like the Digital Athlete, developed in partnership with AWS. Her leadership shows what happens when data, innovation, and care for people align. What makes Jennifer's work especially relevant for sales leaders and all of us here today is her CTG methodology: connect, trust, and grow. It's a framework for navigating high-stakes environments with clarity, confidence, and heart. Exactly what sales professionals need when leading teams, building relationships, and driving results under pressure. And she's here with us today. Jennifer, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Wonderful job on the intro and my CTG. I love it that you open it up with my blueprint on how I've led, but it is a pleasure to be here with both of you and to share more. I look forward to the conversation.
Oh, this is going to be great.
We're certainly looking forward to unpacking that. And as we get started, Jennifer, you know the question we ask every guest on Selling from the Heart. That is, what does selling from the heart mean to you?
So selling from the heart means showing up as your true, authentic self in near every interaction. And so I have a Connect, Trust, Grow blueprint for which I know you are in sales. However, leading high performance teams. And I think that there is a very strong correlate in doing so, that my connect in Connect, Trust, Grow is leading with authentic connection, because that is what builds trust. And that is what stimulates growth. And so what selling from the heart means to me is that when you show up as your authentic self, whether in a sales role or whether as a leader, with that authentic connection, people follow the version of you that's true. And that has been a pillar of success for me, starting in my athletic career and then going into my professional career as well.
I'm so glad you brought up this showing up, because I've always said that you're responsible for how you show up. It's not your company's responsibility. It's not your manager's. It's your responsibility for how you show up. And I think with where trust is at today, it's mission critical to show up with an authentic heart. And at Selling from the Heart, Jennifer, we just say to simply give a rip.
Yeah, no, I love it. I've given many rips, Larry.
That's the G version, Jennifer.
I know, but it's very true. I think that in the complexity, and I can give you numerous examples, in the complexity of leading under a concussion crisis, but as a former CFO who didn't have medical or a scientific credential, for me, being authentic to the purpose and why I was leaving, and authentically connecting with so many different experts, they not only trusted in me, but they trusted in the mission to keep everybody aligned. So it was always connecting the right people, building trust through those quick wins, many times because they believe in their leader, but then they believe in the data. Data was scientific and was essential, but they have to lead in the person before then the data. That's how you grow. You grow together as a team, and you grow together for your next quick win. We build this digital athlete, and everybody thinks, okay, was that a moonshot? There's not a moonshot. It is an iterative model, connect, trust, grow, in building wins together. And you feed off of the learnings of one that leads to the next. And when I say this, I think that the sequence is very important, because if you skip authentically connecting, then your stakeholders will resist. So whether that's you selling into somebody, me educating an equipment manager on the engineering rigor and a new helmet that will mitigate concussions because it's a better performing helmet, it's sales. And if they believe in me and that authentic connection to teach them, they were the conduit to change. So you must connect, because stakeholders resist to change. We all know that. You're a high performing athlete at the NFL. You will resist to change if you don't have that trust and confidence. And that's where I say, if you don't connect, your stakeholders will resist. And if you skip trust, then what you are building will never scale beyond a pilot, because others won't trust it. True. And if then you skip growth, wins that you could have will die as one-offs. How are you going to scale? And so this was a model that over my career, and most importantly in the core values of sport and my life, adversity, is I really learned the true meaning of connect, trust, and grow. Yet then I had the privilege years later to test this model, not only in expert streams to figure out the scientific what, the rigor, the product, the algorithm, but most essentially is the human path as well. So I do advising and speaking now, but it is essential in this world where we are in AI and everybody thinks it's going to replace a role, a division. It will replace certain services. However, look at it that it's going to empower you. And how do you get an organization to feel empowered? You build with and not for them. And so it is so important to have the expert path, which for us at the NFL, when I was leading, was the best in biomechanical engineers. I'm not. The best in scientists, the best neuroscientist. I'm not. So you had the best that were solving for the expert. I didn't have to have all the answers. What I needed to do was integrate them so we could solve for the answers. That was asking the right questions and sharing that they shared data, because so they weren't working in silos and staying aligned to one mission. But when you had to solve for, and I can give you an example, that's the science. And you could solve for the technical playbook, but technical playbooks don't create change, people do. And that is truly where that human path comes in. You have to ensure that when you're building, as we had these huge challenges with what I call maybe a mini moonshot, and doing your operating model, which was authentically connect, build the trust through your leadership and data so that you can grow. And that was a continuous. But once you have the expert ecosystem, you have to design for the who, just as importantly as the what. Why? Your product won't be adopted. An algorithm will be created and they will fear that it will replace them, not empower them. And so multiple different of these big challenges that I did run with high performing teams, it was essential. And it is selling with the heart. And I can say, like, bring my own personal rigor in there, is to truly lead. You have to be able to understand the what and drive the expert team. However, just as essentially is the who. How many times is a financial system deployed and rolled out and people are so scared they're not going to be educated, it's going to change their behavior and they won't do it? You have to spend time with those uniques so that they are learning how it can empower them to help them to really move. And that is so applicable in today's day and age when we have this wealth of intelligence in AI. But the human path is, how are they going to adopt it? How are you going to educate them? How can you use it as a vehicle to really create change? Because then it's just technical. And technical is not a playbook without the adoption. And so they're really two very paths. But the essential point of all of it is selling with your authentic self. So, and Larry, I know that you know a little bit of my personal story, but I blew out my knee as a Division I athlete. I played lacrosse. I was a 4-time All-American in high school, was recruited onto the national championship team, and I blew out my knee and lost my mom in 1 year. So here comes my sales and my why. As a former Division I athlete, I didn't want what happened to me, and I had a career-ending injury to happen to other athletes. That's sales. They believed in me because I could integrate my purpose with, at this point, the league's most essential need. And that's really where I think transformation comes. But credit to the both of you, that is like, what does selling mean and that authentic self? People are scared to be as authentic. You know, they're scared. There's a fear to show more of your own passion and yourself. Look, when I did, yes, it worked. And I'm one of the biggest platforms, but people really believed in me because I was very authentic to why I wanted to help drive this and what it meant to me as well.
Yeah, so powerful. And this whole concept of purpose is something that I think gets overlooked by a vast majority of sales professionals because, you know, you go, okay, well, I'm selling widgets or I'm selling, you know, insert whatever product or service. Talk to us, coach us on this journey of purpose. Obviously, from sports injury to then helping the world's largest sports league mitigate sports injury. That's amazing. How can we do that if we sell widgets or paper clips or, you know, insert?
Daryl, you have to listen to one of my talks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're here. We're having so much fun.
No, I'm very, very passionate about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you're merging two things within what I really want to make an impact on.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, there are many times where you might not have the discipline or the area of expertise that your expert path does, but that doesn't mean, if you feel like an outsider, that you cannot use that as your superpower, right? And create this advantage on how to lead or fill a role for which you have a competency to lead. In my situation, that competency was really taking my adversity, and it was my drive to prevent injuries from happening. Now, I knew it because I lived it. I went from the athlete very quickly to the patient. It was like who I was removed from me. And at that point in time in my life, what served me was the authentic connections to all the experts that I needed, training, getting back out there, the physical therapists, the therapists, right? And then the building trust in myself, but in them to get me back. And that's how personally and professionally I truly grew. And so, there's numerous different examples then of later in life, which was unique, was my career pivot. I was in finance And I started at business school. And I know this is very business school type AX, but I went for it, Larry, as you said, I ripped it. This was a rip. So after business school, look, the league it's competitive. And, it is of such high intelligence and excellence to learn and lead business at the NFL. And so after business school, what I did was I created a Langton roadmap. And when I was thinking, okay, there are opportunities outside the league, but I'm going to give it my all internally. And what we don't do is create an internal resume. Right. And there were some changes in HR. There were some changes in stakeholders, and they rolled out a talent mobility program at the perfect timing when I was graduating business school. So I created what I called the Langton roadmap. The first column was my value, what I had contributed, because I was in finance, what I had contributed, but the impact on the business. Then I created my value, meaning there were the importance of creating and me helping to create a business plan, but lead the transformation for getting youth back into the sport, because it was the league of denial and the concussion crisis, but also the advancements of innovation and health for players. Most essential in this roadmap was I connected it to my why. As a former athlete who understood and had a career-ending injury, I wanted to prevent that from happening, right, to other athletes. However, I tied that personal mission to the league's greatest mission at that time and priority in the concussion crisis, advancing the health and safety of players. And so that Langton roadmap was very much show your value, because they forget it, and it's not being boastful. It's more a recognition, like you would do a resume, of what you had provided. So if somebody sees it, but the impact on the business is so important.
Yeah.
So it's not just a pat, but I did the apparel strategy. What I did, I built their first RFP digital platform, having all the bids come in real time to model it. We grew that business 220%, but I was serving as a change agent there, and I presented it on the impact to the business, which was important to them, showing that I could take on something new. I wasn't, just a numbers person, but I was a change agent. But most important was that why and purpose on how much it meant to me, but I aligned it to the organization's most critical need. The NFL did say yes, thank gosh. And I had this amazing, amazing opportunity ahead of me.
You know what's so interesting about this, and we do a lot of data and analytics, Jennifer, here at Selling from the Heart with Sales Index. And one of the areas that we look at is somebody's will to sell. And one of the components of will to sell is desire, that burning desire to succeed. And it all comes back to knowing your purpose and knowing your why, which we believe here is the inner work fuels all the outer success. And what you just said just 100% mirrors our philosophy.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I lived it, right? I think that that's really where you get to personal transformation as well. And in one of my talks, I say, and it's just this like truthful moment, that every time with this digital athlete, which would predict and prevent injuries, we had the lowest number of concussions on record. So when I started, we were League of Denial, the lowest number of concussions on record when I left. So it was kind of my hook and my bookends. But every time an injury was either, predicted or prevented, it was me winning back a piece of myself. And when you think about that, it's very powerful. And when I was leaving, there were many experts that I had worked with for the years. And, knowing I really wanted to go out and make an impact and share my story, my leadership, I had asked, what is it that resonated about me, about my leadership, and what is sort of like my DNA? And Dr. Barry Myers from Duke University said, you might not have understood or had the depth of the science, but you cared so much to lead change and drive that everybody trusted in you. And we could trust that you're going to connect the dots and get it done. So did I understand some of the finite element models with head injuries and concussions? No, I didn't. I didn't need to. I like to understand it from, more of like the general perspective so that I can create a business plan and structure it that way. And you want to be smart and educated, but exactly what you're saying, because I really cared and I was driving that change.
Yeah.
And that's very much like a sales role.
Mhm.
I will do it.
Absolutely.
Leadership hovers on that. You have to angle, you have to ensure that you're getting consensus. You're sure that you're driving the change. And most importantly, when I was working with numerous of the experts, most want to publish and most think about themselves. But we had to stay aligned to one and only one mission. And that is sales. You are constantly grabbing those individuals to bring them back, to draw them to, but this is why we are on board and we are staying aligned to one and only one mission. I had the weight of the NFL behind me, so that was easy, gentlemen. But but that's what it is. It's a
And hard.
selling.
Yeah.
And making people feel seen, valued, and heard, and that their contributions are delivering, and understanding in rooms of experts, understanding beforehand the critical questions that I could ask to sort of break down the gaps, the barriers, questions that experts wouldn't ask of one another. And so it's kind of that, it is that leadership selling role that you're getting everybody there aligned to see one mission and one goal by the conclusion of whatever meeting or, whatever whiteboard session that we were in.
Well, if there's one thing that sales and leadership have in common, it's the word change. Obviously, leaders are driving change. Sales professionals, we all sell exactly the same thing. We sell change at the end of the day. And I think going back to this connect, trust, grow, understanding that the first part of change, you can make a scientific case, a financial case, a technical case. But if we don't get the connect part right, the odds of that catching on, the odds of them saying yes to the deal or past a pilot, they're pretty low. So what we're talking about here, it may feel on the surface touchy-feely to some folks, but the reality is the rubber meets the road on this connect part.
It does. And especially in the AI space. So I'll give you an example with, we had a great amount of success, what we call the engineering roadmap, was better understanding how concussions happen on field so that we can leverage insights and data to move the helmet marketplace, as well as make changes to the game. And so we worked with helmet manufacturers, the competition committee. Many of those insights did, in just a few years, make significant change. We were down 25% in concussions. We had some significant rules changes like lowering the head that did have an impact for the players. However, that process was so manual and laborious. Reviewing videos, annotating the understanding of what was happening. We knew that there was technology. So we had a speed, and scale issue. It took one technician 4 days to count the number of head impacts in one game. 4 days. Then now computer vision can count in near real time. So I knew that we could have technology that would replace that. However, our next step was we went on, I created this, another roadmap, but this one was, I'm big on roadmaps. This one was more of a roadmap to find the right partners in the space. So we needed a technology partner that would help us to take all of this video that we had and distill that down. Let's say one example is head impacts.
Yeah.
So we weren't doing it manual, taking 4 days, because you can't speed and scale every player, every injury, doing it that way. So we went on this road show and we were knocking doors to, everywhere from academia, being MIT, Google, Microsoft, you name it. We selected AWS because they really did understand our vision to predict and prevent injury, and it came back to the athlete. So as we were building, here's something that was so pivotal. This was, the teams have athlete management systems. This was the connect and building trust, because you cannot create models that are predicting injuries for their players without them. What do you have? What do you use? And how could we, the league office, empower them. A model is not going to replace your intelligence, but what it can do is take your running back and compare your running back across all running backs across the league, something that they didn't have. It was sales. We built with and not for those athlete management teams. And then it was them via word of mouth that built the trust with the other organizations so we can scale pilots to then league wide. And that's how the digital athlete was created. It was very much a, what do you have today? And building the strategic value with them, that what could we provide to you that you don't have? What they couldn't have is integrating and aggregating data across the entire league. So your N is higher. Talking about statistics, that's some pretty powerful statistics. And so education and getting them on board with those pilots and learning and training with them, that was selling, but that's how we built the strategic visibility, and their voice carried through teams and to the other teams with our success. But we couldn't have done it without that rigor, connecting with them first, and then the pilots grew. And one success led to another, but our learnings led. We didn't build for them. We built with them, and we learned with them. That's how we empowered them. So an example of a bookend of that is we created injury reduction models, and one of which was a lower extremity model. And a running back we had seen on the way up to postseason, this was about 2 years ago now, up to postseason, he had an imbalance, and the model was showing the differential. And so that data goes to the athlete management team, and what they did was tweaked that running back's practice schedule, and then he, preventing an injury, we hope, because we saw that fragmentation on his stance and his pose and his stride, is he went and made a run for Super Bowl.
Wow.
And so the data itself was comparing against his baseline. Very sophisticated technology, but that is empowering the individual with data that he didn't have. And that's like one of the many examples of results where it was like, even for me, I blew out my knee. Wow, that is incredible what data can do.
I love it.
Hey, Daryl, what's interesting is, Jennifer, this is a fascinating conversation, but Daryl, I'm sitting here listening to Jennifer, and it's, imagine all the sales leaders and executives out there. This is sales centric as we wrap this up, is this. Imagine if you had this kind of data and analytics on your salespeople, how much better you can connect, build trust, and help them grow through the power of data and analytics. This is so good stuff, Daryl.
It is. Well, Jennifer, what an amazing conversation. We knew this was going to be fun. I am so thankful that you shared your time with us today. I know our folks are asking the same question I am. How do you get more Jennifer Langton in your life?
Well, I do have a, be prepared.
Watch out. Maybe you didn't want to ask that question.
I do have a website, jenniferlangtoninc.com, but you can also find me on my LinkedIn as well, Jennifer Langton.
Awesome. We'll put all those links in the show notes. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. This has been an amazing conversation. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
That's our pleasure. Thanks.
Awesome. What a cool conversation. Connect, trust, grow. And yeah, you talk about the technical side of this. You talk about the analytics side of sports, what we get to do at Sales Index every day with sales teams, all of the data and all the technical side of it, all of the expertise necessary, powerful, but without connect, trust, and being able to authentically drive trust in an organization or with a client, it's not going to go anywhere.
No, and I would say this, the more you know about your people, the more you can grow with your people. And, here we are in 2026, we're in a data analytical driven world. I'm just going to lean into leaders right now and you just got to ask yourself, what could the power of data and analytics do to help unlock the performance of our team so that they can connect, build trust, and grow with our clients?
Absolutely. Very, very powerful. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to everybody who's sharing this podcast, leaving reviews. As we said at the beginning of the show, this is a global movement of sales professionals that go, yeah, I'm all in on that. I believe in selling from the heart. And we've got great things coming up. So make sure to like, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you listen or watch. And we're looking forward to great conversations here in the weeks to come.
Yeah. And I'll just end with this. If you know heart-centered leaders, thought leaders out there, people you'd like to see on our podcast, just reach out to us. We enjoy bringing fresh voices with new ideas and new insights, all to help us become better.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, connect, trust, and grow. And most of all,
sell from the heart.